Now we will sit in a comfortable meditation posture and close the eyes. Put your attention on the silence that is always there deep in the connected with that silence. Become the silent witness. You are the silent witness. From this perspective of the silent witness, listen to the words of the yoga. Book 4, Chapter 8, the reincarnation of Shukra. Vasishtha related. Thus the son of Bhrigu, in his daydream, believed himself to be enjoying heavenly pleasure. He thought of enjoying the company of his beloved, like the full moon accompanied by the evening star, bedecked with garlands of mandara flowers, and inebriated with the drink of ambrosial drugs. He roved about the ideal lake of heaven, Manas Sarovar, filled with golden lotuses and frequented by the giddy swans and gabbling geese of heaven. He roamed beside the bank of the celestial Manadakini river, accompanied by celestial singers. He drank sweet nectar juice beaming like moonbeams in company with the gods. He rested under trees and groves, formed by the shaking branches of Parijata. He amused himself with his favorite air spirits, Vidyadhars, swinging himself in hanging cradles formed by the shady vines of the arbor, and screening them from the spring sunbeams. The flower beds of the Nandana gardens were trodden down under the feet of Shiva's followers, as when the ocean was churned by Mandara Mountain. Tender weeds and willows growing like golden shrubs, and the tangled bushes by the beach of the river were trampled under the legs of heated elephants, as when they infest the lotus lakes on Mount Meru. Accompanied by his sweetheart, Shukra passed moonlit nights in the forest groves of Kaila, listening to the songs and music of heavenly singers. Roaming on the tablelands of Gandhamandana Mountain, he decorated his beloved from head to foot with lotus garlands. He wandered with her to the polar mountain full of wonders, having darkness on one side and light on the other. Here they played together with tender smile and fond caresses and embraces. He thought he remained in a celestial abode beside the marshy lands of Mandara for 60 years. passed his time in the company of the young Apsara of the place. He believed he passed half a yuga with his companions on the border of the Milky Ocean, and they associated with the maritime people and islanders of that ocean. Next, he thought to live in a garden of the city of celestial singers in darkness, where he believed to have lived for an immeasurable period, like the genius of time himself, who is the producer of an infinity of worlds. He again found himself by the celestial seat of Indra, where he believed to have resided with his mistress for many cycles of the 4 Yuga ages. It was at the end of the merit of their acts that they were doomed to return to, shorn of their heavenly beauty and fine features. Being deprived of his heavenly seat and vehicle and bereft of his godlike form and features, Shukra was overcome by deep sorrow, like a hero falling in the field of warfare. His great grief at his fall from heaven to earth broke his frame as if into 100 fragments, like a waterfall falling on stony ground and breaking into 100 streams below. With their emaciated bodies and sad minds, they wandered about in the air like birds without their nest. Afterwards, their disembodied minds entered into the network of lunar beings. Then, in the form of molten frost or rainwater, they grew as vegetables upon earth. Some of these vegetables were prepared and eaten by a monk in the land of the Sarn, the confluence of 10 streams. The substance of Shukra changed to the semen of the Brahman and then conceived as a son by his wife. The boy was trained in the society of ancient sages, Munis, to the practice of rigorous austerities, and he dwelt in the forests of Meru for a whole Manvantara, observing the holy rites. There he gave birth to a male child of human figure in a dove, to which his mistress was transformed in her next birth, and became exceedingly fond of the boy to the neglect of his sacred duty. He constantly prayed for long life, wealth, and learning for his daughter, and thus forsook the constancy of his faith and reliance in providence. Thus his falling off from the thought of heaven to those of the earthly success of his son made his shortened life an easy prey to death, just as the inhaling of air by the serpent. His worldly thoughts weakened his understanding and caused him to be reborn as the son and successor to the king of Madras. having long reigned in his kingdom of Madras, by eliminating all his enemies, he was overtaken at last by old age. As the lotus flower is stunted by frost, the king of Madras was released of his royal body by his desire for asceticism, whereby he became the son of a hermit in the following birth, in order to perform his austerities. He retired to a bank of the meandering Ganges River, and there, being devoid of all his worldly anxieties and cares, absorbed himself in thought. Thus, the son of Bhrigu, having passed in various forms in his successive births, according to the desires of his heart, remained at last like a fixed tree on the bank of a running stream. Chapter 9, description of Shukra's body during his austerities. Vasishtha related. As Shukra was indulging his reveries in this manner, he passed insensibly under the flight of a series of years which glided over him in the presence of his father. At last his body withered away with his age under the inclement sun, winds, and rain. He fell down on the ground like a tree torn from its roots. In all his former births, his mind thirsted after fresh pleasures and enjoyments. Just like a deer hunts from forest to forest after fresh vegetation. He underwent repeated births and deaths in his wanderings in the world and searching its enjoyments. He seemed like something whirled about in a mill or a turning wheel, until at last he found his rest in the cooling beach of the river. Now the disembodied spirit of Shukra remained to reflect on his past incarnations in all the real and ideal forms of his imagination. It thought of its former body on Mandara Mountain, how it was reduced to a skeleton of mere bones and skin by the heat of the sun and his austerities. It remembered how the wind instrument of his lungs breathed out the joyous music of its exemption from the pain of action. Seeing how the mind is plunged in the pit of worldly cares, the body seems to laugh at it by showing the white teeth of the mouth in derision. The cavity of the mouth, the sockets of the eyes, the nostrils and ear holes in the open face are all expressive of the hollowness of human and heavenly body. The body sheds the tears of its eyes in sorrow for its past pains and austerities. Just like the sky rains after excessive to cool the earth, the body was refreshed by breeze and moonbeam, just as in woodlands are renovated by cooling showers in the rainy season. It remembered how its body was washed on the banks of the mountain streams by waterfalls from above, and how it was daubed by flying dust and the dirt of sin. It was as naked as a withered tree and rustled to the air with the breeze. Yet it withstood the keen blasts of winter by unshaken devotion in a person. The faded face, the withered lungs and arteries, and the skinny belly resembled those of the goddess of famine, who cried aloud in the forest in the howling of wild beasts. Yet the holy person of the hermit, owing to its freedom from passion and feelings and its fervent couples, was unhurt by envious animals and was not devoured by rapacious beasts and birds. The body of Bhrigu's son was weakened by his abstinence and self-denial, and his mind was employed in holy topics. Was unheard by envious animals and was not devoured by rapacious beasts and birds. As his body lay prostrate on a bed of stone. Chapter 10. Bhrigu's anger invokes Yama, who describes Sukra's many lies. Vasishtha continued. After the lapse of 1,000 years, the great Bhrigu suspended his holy meditation, disengaged his mind from its meditation of God, and rose from his holy journey. He did not find his son lowly bending down his head before him. The son who was the leader of the army of virtues and who was the personified figure of all merits. He saw only his son's body lying like a skeleton before him, like wretchedness or poverty personified in that shape. The skin of his body was dried by the sun, and his nostrils snored like a whooping mouse. The entrails of his belly sounded like dry leather pipes with the croaking of frogs. His eye sockets were filled with newborn worms, and his rib bones had become like bars of cave, with this thin skin over them, resembling a spider's web. The dry and white skeleton of the body resembled the desire of fruition, which bends it to the earth to undergo all the favorable and unfavorable accidents of life. The crown of the head had become as white and smooth as a Shiva linga, anointed with camphor in an Indravarcha ceremony in honor of the moon. The withered head, erected on a bony neck bone, was like the soul supported by the bone. The nose had shriveled into a dry stalk for lack of flesh. And the nose bone stood like a post, dividing the two halves of the face. The face, standing erect over the shoulders on both sides, was looking forward towards the womb of the empty sky, where its vital breath had fled from his nose. The two legs, thighs, knees, and arms had doubled in strength and lay flat, slackened with the fatigue of a long journey. The shriveled flesh and skin of the belly lean like a thin strip of wood, showed the emptiness inside of the egg. Seeing the withered skeleton of his son lying like a worn-out post, Brigu reflected and rose from his seat. At the side of the dead body, he began to question in his mind whether it could be the lifeless carcass of his son or any other. Thinking it to be the dead body of his son, he became angry at the god of death. He prepared to pronounce his curse on the god of fire as vengeance for snatching his son prematurely from him. At this, Yama, the Lord of Death and Devourer of living beings, assumed his figurative form of a material body and appeared in an instant before the enraged father. He appeared in armor with 6 arms and as many faces, accompanied by an array of his adherents, holding noose, sword, and other weapons in his hand. Now continue witnessing from the silent witness. Again, Trimana Sanyama on the esoteric Maha Mantra. And balance the karmic traces that have been enlivened by today's reading of yoga. Mhm.